This week's episode of Bear Grease is very unique. I had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to sit down with legendary American news broadcaster Ted Koppel. I did an hour-long interview with Ted. And what I've learned is that if you are below the age of 35, there's a chance that that name wouldn't ring a bell in your head, or if you saw his face, you might not recognize it. But if you're over the age of 35, I would say you probably recognize the name Ted Koppel. He was a broadcast journalist for ABC Nightline from 1980 to 2005. And his face would have been as recognizable as any American president. As a matter of fact, he has interviewed every American president since Nixon. And he's interviewed, you just name a world leader over the last 35 to 40 years, and Ted Koppel has sat with him. And he was on Bear Grease, which I think is pretty cool. We talk about his life. We talk about his career in journalism. And I really think you're going to enjoy this episode with a really unique guy. I also wanted to tell you and remind you about the MeatEater live tour. The good, the bad, and the jolly. We're doing a Christmas live tour. We're going to 7 cities across the South. We're starting in Birmingham, going to Nashville, Tennessee, then to Memphis, Tennessee, then to Fayetteville, Arkansas with the W. I think there's potential for people to think we're going to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Great city, but we're going to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Josh. Then we're going to Dallas, Texas, and then to Austin. And it's all right before Christmas. And you can buy tickets right now. Go to themeateater.com/tour and buy your tickets. I really think they're going to sell out fast. And the MeatEater live tour is like a variety show. It's like a 2-hour variety show. There's going to be music. There's going to be storytelling. There's going to be contests, potentially an owl hooting contest, of which I would be the king supreme judge. There will be a lot of audience participation. We're going to give away stuff. And truly, it's just guaranteed to be a good time. It's going to be Steve Rinella, Brent Reeves, Giannis Putelis, Dr. Randall Williams, and myself, along with in every city, we're going to have special guests. And I can tell you, it's just a lot of fun. So check that out. And then lastly, before we get to the interview with Ted Koppel, check out MeatEater's Whitetail Week. If you're looking for a refresh on your First Light gear, check out Whitetail Week, September 29th through October the 5th. September 29th through October the 5th. And I truly believe that First Light has the best whitetail gear on planet Earth. It ain't cheap. I'm not going to act like it's cheap, but nothing that's good is cheap. So, but it truly is. We've got some of the best whitetail kits, and they're all going to be on sale. So check it out. Without further ado, thank you so much for listening to Bear Grease. This episode will drop on iTunes and all the audio platforms, but also YouTube. You'll be able to watch me grilling Ted Koppel, the man who interviewed the first American guy to interview Putin. He interviewed Nixon. He interviewed Clinton. He interviewed Mikhail Gorbachev. He interviewed the great leaders of the earth, and now it's his turn to feel the heat. I hope you enjoyed Ted Koppel. Mr. Koppel?
Ted. Just Ted.
It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me and for coming to Arkansas.
Well, I had to. You threatened not to do it if I wouldn't talk to you, right?
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I grew up watching you. I was born in 1979. So my childhood.
You missed the early years.
Missed some of the early years.
Yes.
But I grew up watching you, knew your voice. Was just a kid for much of your career.
Sure.
But thank you so much for being here. I've got a little introduction that I would like to read.
Sure.
For for people listening that's about you. It's a little bio about you, and you can add in any corrections or adjustments or polish it up if you wish.
It better be good.
Well, okay. This was not written by Chat GPT, by the way. This is legitimate.
I'm glad to hear it.
So we'll see how accurate it is. Ted Koppel is an American broadcast journalist and author. His career at ABC News spanned more than 4 decades and included roles as a foreign and diplomatic correspondent, but was best known for his 25-year tenure as anchor and managing editor of ABC News Nightline. During his time at Nightline, which began in 1980, he became one of American television's most trusted voices. Koppel has won dozens of prestigious honors for his work, including numerous Emmys and Peabody Awards. After leaving Nightline in 2005, he continued his career as a journalist, including serving as managing editor for the Discovery Channel and analyst for NPR and BBC, and a senior contributor to CBS News Sunday Morning.
Which is what brings me here.
Which is what brings you here today.
Right.
I'm really most interested. I find there's been a lot of media about your career, which that's what people see. People see your career. They've seen you interview Richard Nixon and Mikhail Gorbachev and world leaders and presidents and orchestrated kind of to the American people the Iranian hostage situation. I mean, all these like key events. That's kind of the shiny, glimmering part of your life that people are interested in.
That's the Iranian hostage crisis. That's what you were listening to every day when you were 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best I can recall, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you got it all right. You got it right.
Well, and part of what I'm most interested in is what got you to that place of success in your career, because oftentimes people see somebody that's been really successful and it appears as if that just showed up in their life. Well, you're Ted Koppel. Of course you're going to be interviewing world leaders, but there was a journey that got you to that place. And I kind of want to start at the beginning to give some chronology. You were born in London, England. And
Actually, I was born in Lancashire, which is up north, just south of the Scottish border.
Mm.
And then my parents moved down to London at the beginning of the war.
Mm. So, but that's where you were born.
I was born in England.
And your parents fled Germany.
They did.
Because of persecution from Nazis.
Yes.
Wow.
They did.
Wow.
They did. My good fortune that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And that they, a little later on, decided to come to the United States. That was the best of all.
What kind of persecution did they receive? Like, what was going on? I mean, I know the stories, I know the general idea, but specifically your parents.
Well, specifically, my father was arrested a couple of times and held for a few days. And fortunately, one of his best friends from school, where he had grown up, was a judge who was able to get him out and who told him at one point, I think you better leave. You might not make it out the next time.
Why was he arrested?
I have no idea. Well, I mean, he's Jewish, so that was a good reason.
Were they looking for Jewish people to do something like minor that they could arrest them, or were they just straight up going and saying, you are a Jew, I am now taking you in? Or was it anything specific?
Frankly, I wasn't around at the time, so I can't tell you how they did it.
Okay.
But they didn't need many excuses. I mean, they ended up killing 6 million people. So, that was just the way it began.
Yeah, yeah. And then when they came to London, were they...
Not to London.
I'm Lancaster.
Yeah, they went up to Lancashire because my father had run a factory in Germany that made rubber tires. And Lancashire, as you may or may not know, was a big textile center of the UK. And you need textiles for the interior of automobile tires. So they invited him to come to Lancashire and set up shop there, which he did. And he started a tire factory in Lancashire.
And you lived there till you were 13?
Not Lancashire. I lived, I was in boarding school when I was 11.
Okay.
So for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I was in boarding school before we came to the United States.
Okay. Okay. So you were, though, in England till you were 13?
Yes.
Okay. Now this may seem a little, it seems to be not a relevant question, but how do you not have an English accent?
Well, I'll explain how it was when I first came over. So I was 13 years old, and here's this scrawny little kid, 13, with an English accent, in high school, in study hall, absolute silence, an all-boys school. And the little English kid raises his hand and says, and this is how it sounded back then, "Please, does anyone here have a rubber?" Which in England is an eraser. In New York City, it was not. And as you can imagine, that was the source of some amusement.
So this actually happened.
Oh,
this really happened.
I wouldn't make this story up, trust me. Yes, this happened. And, from then on, for the next few months or so, making fun of the English kid and his accent was very much a part of it. But A, I've got a good ear for accents, and B, I was young enough that I was still very flexible.
So did you intentionally change your accent?
It wasn't a matter of intentional. It was a matter of, as you'll notice over the course of the next couple of days when I'm around you, by the time I leave here, I'll be sounding just like you.
Code switching.
Code switching.
Code switching.
Is that what it's called?
People accuse me of code switching sometimes.
Right.
Because you basically adapt your language, the words that you say to best connect with the person that you're dealing with.
Right.
When I talk to people from here and where I'm at,
you sound different.
I might drop her into low gear and bring in that Ozark accent.
I'll start sounding like you. I told you.
But then when I'm with when I'm with Ted Koppel, I might tone it up a little bit. Code switching.
Code switching.
Yeah.
Is that a term you came up with?
No. This is not. This is a
I've never heard
linguistic
that before.
term.
A linguistic term. See,
Yes,
I've
sir.
learned something new.
Yes.
Code switching.
Because I would have, if you told me that somebody lived in England for 13 years, I would have thought you would have always had a touch of an accent. And
I did for the first few years.
Okay.
I really did. I mean, even when I went off to college, I have audio tapes of some of the programs I did at the college radio station. And the little kid still has very much of an English accent in those days, yes.
So what brought your parents here? What opportunity opened up in America that brought them here?
What brought them here, I have to believe, was love for me. And the thought that the United States is still, I like to believe, the land of opportunity. It certainly worked out that way for me.
Mm-hmm. Were you an only child?
I was.
Only child. Wow.
My parents were quite advanced in years by the time they married. My mother was 40 when I was born. My father was 44, 45.
Wow.
So, it was it. I was kind of
You were the apple of their eye.
I was a one-shot wonder. It was going to be me and no brothers and sisters to worry about.
Did they live into your career long enough that they saw you be as successful as you would become?
Not really. They saw me be a war correspondent in Vietnam, And I found after my dad died, I found a diary that he had kept of every time he heard me on the radio. Every time,
Wow.
But they never got to see me on Nightline. No.
So if there's one thing that I know about people, it's that where we come from affects our worldview, who we are, who we become, our character.
Right.
Tell me how your parents impacted your life. Like, are you still living out, would you say the value system, the character that you have inside of you today would be congruent with your parents? Would it be different? Has it shifted?
I think that's a very good way of putting it. I think the value system would be the same. I think who I have become, what I've done, there was no background for that in my family. I mean, the idea that I would become a journalist, the idea that over the course of the past, let's see, I've been doing this now since 1963. So what are we talking about? 62 years ago. Over the past 62 years, I've probably covered 7, 8 different wars. That shaped me a lot. Mm-hmm. I've spent more time with the U.S. military in one place or another, one form or another, than many of my friends who were in the military. Mm-hmm. I was never in the military, but I've spent an awful lot of time with them. Most recently, someone was remarking on my backpack out there, which has Koppel Nightline on it. Last time I used that backpack was in Iraq. I was embedded with U.S. forces there. Wow. When they invaded Iraq. That was 2003, so that's already 22 years ago.
Interesting. Were your parents people of faith?
Yes.
Are you today a person of faith?
Less so. I'm married to a Catholic woman. She and I have been very respectful of one another's religions. I am less of a believer than my parents were.
I understand.
Do you?
I do understand.
Okay.
I do. That's interesting.
You don't relate, but you understand.
That's a good way to put it, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So you got married in 1963? 1963.
Right.
And at that time, you had just gotten out of college. You went to Syracuse and Stanford.
Stanford. Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I just got my master's at Stanford. I had worked for a local radio station in New York. I went to the New York Times. They offered me a job as what was called a copy boy in those days.
Sounds a little derogatory.
Well,
copy boy.
Believe me, it was derogatory. Coffee boy. What coffee boys?
They weren't trying to make it sound derogatory. It was derogatory.
It was derogatory. Okay. Exactly. Okay. I mean, you were a copy boy. You got coffee for the people who counted.
Yeah.
The editors, the reporters. Yeah. Right?
That's like Josh, my producer.
You got very, very close. Your wife was nice enough to bring me this cup of coffee.
She is not my copy boy.
She is not your copy girl.
But
that's for sure.
She does get coffee sometimes.
No, she was very gracious. She was a good hostess. So I did that for about a year, and the New York Times offered me a job as a copy boy. And I said, well, what does it pay? And my wife and I had just married. Actually, we'd been married for a few months already. We had a baby on the way. And they were paying, I believe back then it was $65 a week. And at the time, I was making $90 a week at a local radio station. So I couldn't take the pay cut to go to the Times. And after a year or so, one of the disc jockeys at ABC at this radio station, WMCA, got a job at ABC and told me they still had a couple of openings. So I went and applied for it. And they said, you know, you're very good, and we'd like to hire you, but you're 23 years old. You know, we can't hire a 23-year-old as a correspondent at a network. And I said, well, you're talking about a radio correspondent. I said, I don't sound 23, do I? And he said, no. And I said, well, if you don't tell him, I won't. And they waited a couple of days, and then they came back and said, okay, you got the job. And I was with ABC for 43 years.
Were you reporting when Kennedy got assassinated?
I was.
Was that that was been early on?
Well, that was 1963. That was my first year there.
First year.
Yeah.
Now, were you on assignment to what you had a specific assignment after that?
Well, at that time, I was doing a program called Flair Reports with 5 other people. And these were little 3-minute news features. And
they were doing 3-minute news features in 1963.
Yes.
It sounds a little, I thought it was more of this long form. I thought this was new that we were doing these little.
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay.
Yeah. You could have been at ABC. You see, you could have been doing.
Could have.
You could have. I think you landed on your feet here.
Yeah, I did.
You
Didn't
did.
expect to. Didn't expect to be a journalist, but.
Well, there you go.
So what did you do with the Kennedy assassination? What was you were assigned to Lyndon Johnson?
I was assigned to stand outside Lyndon Johnson's. He did in those days, 1963. The Vice President of the United States did not have a formal residence. There is now a Vice President's mansion.
Okay.
Back then, there was not. And he was living in the home of a woman, I believe she was from Texas, and her name was Pearl Mesta. She was known as the hostess with the mostess.
Okay.
Yeah. And Lyndon Johnson and Lady Bird were living in her home, waiting to ascend to the White House, but they were going to be living there. And I was assigned to stand outside the house and report on the new president of the United States as he made his way to the White House. He was supposed
literally him coming out the door.
Literally him coming out the door.
Wow.
He was supposed to come out, I forget what the time was, let's say 7:30 in the morning. He didn't come out until 8:30. They had nowhere else to go. So they stuck with me, and I ad-libbed for an hour.
Oh, really?
Really.
Live television?
Live radio.
Live radio.
Radio. I wasn't doing television
That's right.
in those days. It was just radio. And so that was, in some respects, that was one of my first big breaks. They realized I could ad-lib.
What did you talk about? Were you like, they have nice landscaping out here?
You know something? I remember one thing in particular that I did talk about. There was a guy who had this huge dog, may have been a Mastiff, and he had tied the leash of the Mastiff to the handle of the driver's side of his car. And he was literally walking his dog around the neighborhood.
Driving it.
Driving. Because the Mastiff was so big that if he had tried to, jog,
pulled him around.
It would have pulled him around. And
I thought maybe the guy's lazy, but now I think maybe he's smart.
He was smart. And the dog didn't seem to mind it,
And so you're reporting on, you're ad-libbing about what you're seeing, standing outside of Lyndon Johnson's after Kennedy's assassinated.
I was doing at least 3 or 4 minutes on the man and the dog, right? Yes.
Journalism at its best.
At its basic.
So you got that job. You were married. One thing that was interesting to me, and this relates to your relationship that you have with your family and your wife. As I understand it, after your career had launched, you stepped down from your career to allow your wife to go to law school and pursue her career. Is that the way that happened?
I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you the inside story.
Y'all rolling?
You're rolling? You got this? My wife and I met in grad school at Stanford. I was taking a master's degree. She was getting her PhD. She was very close to getting her PhD when we decided that we were going to get married. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, I don't think I can handle this. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, the idea of Dr. and Mr. Koppel. My ego wouldn't let me handle that. And to my everlasting shame, I talked my wife out of finishing her PhD. A few years pass. 10 years, 12 years. I'm thinking back now, and I'm ashamed of myself. Right? I mean, what I did was not right. And so I went back to my wife and I said, that wasn't right, and I want to make it right. I'll take a year off, and let's head back out to California and finish your PhD. And she said, I've been thinking about that. I don't really want to do that. I want to go to law school. I said, okay, I'll take your first year of law school off. So I went up to ABC and I told him, and they said, well, let's see if we can't keep you part-time. And so they put a microphone in the house, and I did a daily commentary from my home. After I did the carpool, took the kids to school, fixed breakfast, fixed their lunches, did the shopping, then I recorded the commentary. And word got out that I had done this, and this had to be about 1977. Back in 1977, house husbands were not that much of a common thing. Wasn't a thing. So, I got a lot of play as a house husband. And I became the patron saint of house husbands. So the irony of all irony was Ted, having done a really despicable thing when he was 20 years old or 21 years old, ends up becoming a hero for doing the right thing 12 years later. There. Now you have the whole story.
That's an incredible story, because most people wouldn't have pulled that off. I mean, I don't think most people would have had the character to see that they'd done something wrong and actually go back and fix it.
It's kind of you to put it that way. But,
I think it's true.
Well, thank you. All right.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that checks out, because that's sort of now you gave me the inside story that no one's ever heard. Only on Bear Grease have they heard this.
Well,
all the reporting in the world.
A couple of other people may have heard it over the years. Yeah, it's just a couple. Okay. But I doubt that the Bear Grease listeners had heard it before.
They probably haven't.
Right.
They probably haven't. I want to talk to you about
the non-viewing listeners need to know that at this point you were checking your notes, right?
It's true. I checked first time I checked it.
That's
now
good.
You became known. You told me before we started there are two kinds of journalists. There are those that come in with
two kinds of interviewers, not two kinds of journalists, but two kinds of interviewers.
People that have a list of questions, and then people that actually engage like a human would engage in normal conversation. And shift and flow and listen.
Now, you can, if you want to be kind to your kind of interviewer, you can say it's two kinds of interviewers. one who prepares and the other who doesn't.
Who needs notes?
Right? No, I mean, you prepare.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You did your homework.
Yes.
You were a good boy.
How do you? So you've sat across from world leaders. Give me a highlight reel of the world leaders that you have. If there were a top 5, who would Ted Koppel's top 5 world leaders that you've interviewed be?
Okay, well, let's lump all the presidents together, okay?
American presidents.
American presidents, that's one.
Have you interviewed all of them up until?
I've interviewed Trump, I've interviewed Clinton, I've interviewed Obama, I've interviewed Nixon, I interviewed Reagan, I interviewed, I have interviewed both Bushes. Yeah. So, we're
going to put them in one category.
That's one category.
Yeah, because those guys just get a job for 4 years and move on and just kind of inconsequential.
Inconsequential. On the other hand, what else is there? I interviewed Nelson Mandela when he came out of prison.
Did you go to South Africa?
I did.
Okay.
I interviewed Putin. I was the first, certainly the first American journalist to interview.
Is he short?
He's about my size. Yes, he's short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, and in fact, he and I were standing up when I was interviewing him, because it was supposed to be a brief interview. They were going to give me 10 minutes, and I kept going. And finally, one of his aides was crawling on his belly on the floor and tugging on my pants to indicate to me in case I had forgotten.
You kept going, though.
I kept going, though.
You kept going. You had him.
I had him.
What year did you interview Putin?
That was when he became president. What would that have been? About 1990 something. Right?
Late 90s?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nelson Mandela.
Putin. Who are some of the other? We've got all the American presidents now. We've got
Gorbachev.
Yes, I was with Gorbachev at the Kremlin in his office when he was sitting across the desk from him like this, when he was when he was saying goodbye to George Bush. So that was kind of a twofer.
When
right?
you...
Wait a second, I'm giving you a twofer here, and you ride right over it. I mean, how many other people interviewed, had Gorbachev and...
Carry on. My apologies,
No. That's, Gorbachev and Bush.
At the same time.
At the same time. That's not bad, right?
That's not bad.
Right.
That's almost like the time I interviewed Roy Clark and Warner Glenn at the same time.
Roy Clark, I know. Who's the other guy?
Yeah, it's a joke. You probably don't know the Roy Clark I'm talking about.
Okay. All right.
It was an inside joke for my beloved beargrease people. Roy Clark is a plot bear hound man, a legend in East Tennessee, and Warner Glenn is probably the oldest living working cowboy in America. Incredible man. Well, it was an inside joke.
I think you just trumped me, to coin a phrase.
Maybe so. Okay, world leaders, though. You were giving me your top 5 world leaders. We're close to 5, so.
Oh, yeah. I think who else have we got? Now, would any of your listeners know the name Elie Wiesel?
I'm not familiar with that name.
You're not familiar with it?
My wife probably is.
I'll bet she is.
My wife is.
Yeah, she's nodding her head.
I should have just said yes, shouldn't I?
Yeah, no, Elie Wiesel was a survivor of the Holocaust. And he came to this country as a refugee, and he began working for peace all over the world. And he ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize. He was a wonderful man. He really was, an extraordinary human being. who had survived many, many things. I mean, he was in one of the death camps. His father was killed there. I believe his mother was killed there also. Anyway, so Ellie, we need more, or can we go to a different line?
I have a question. When you think about your life,
Yeah.
Are interviewing world leaders, because in your job that would kind of be a pinnacle marker of success. Is that meaningful to you or no?
Less than you might think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that. I thought you might say that.
Well, you're a sensitive guy. Is that going to undermine your credibility with all the bear hunters if I say you're a sensitive guy?
Cut that. No, because people that would know me at a surface level might think they would understand these like external accolades that might be meaningful to me.
Right.
And
they
wouldn't be that much.
I mean, I get to do my interview later, but what's the most meaningful accolade to you?
Well, the most meaningful accolade that I have, no, I'm not trying to sound cute, but would be how I am when there are no cameras and no podcasts and no people.
Right.
How I am as a husband and a father. That is the pinnacle of my success, aside from, which would even be a layer deeper, what I believe God expects from me and how I live. So my connection to Him. But people might see me sitting with Ted Koppel or me some hunting escapade that was an adventure. And those things are meaningful, but they are.
You're absolutely right. But having said that, I have a whole lifetime of having done the one at the expense of the other. You know, we have 4 children.
Mm-hmm. I have 4 children. Guess
who takes care of them when daddy's off fighting the war or covering the war? Right. You know, I was in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia over a period of about 3 years, in and out. We had, at that point, when I first went to Vietnam, we had 2 kids. By the time we left Hong Kong in 1971, we had 3 and a 4th on the way. My wife was the one who took care of it, everything.
Would you have done it the same way if you could do it again?
No.
What would you do different?
What I would do differently is I would show a little more spunk. I would say no on occasion. Mm-hmm. When our son was born, he was born in Hong Kong. It was a very difficult birth. It was a cesarean birth. He'd had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He very nearly didn't make it. 2 days after he was born, or 3 days after he was born, I forget which exactly, I went off to Cambodia. Why? Because there was a war going.
And you were at the peak of your career. You had to make it, or you were before the peak of your career.
It's certainly. I mean, if Nightline was the peak of the career, this would have been 20 years before the peak.
You were scrapping to fight to the top, because that's the hardest part. And I want to ask you a question about it.
That's right.
Like when you're in your 30s and when you're in your 20s, when men and women are fighting to get a hold on life, their career, the things that are ultimately going to help their family.
Right.
That's the time when we also have our children, most people.
Yep.
And it's so difficult in the moment, because I would have the same scenario to some degree, not to the degree that you traveled. Have I traveled? Not even close. But my wife would say, yeah, Clay spends a lot of time away. But it's such a difficult thing, because all that made you who you are. Did it come at the expense of your family, though? Was your family?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. No question. I mean, my wife has been heroic in terms of how she has kept the family together. She's been heroic in terms of doing everything that a husband would have done if he'd been home.
But would she want you to have done something different today?
I know her pretty well. But I can't answer that. I don't know. I think in her heart of hearts, she would say, if I thought he could have stayed home without becoming embittered at the loss of opportunity, I would have wanted him to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't want me to lose that opportunity. And she didn't, not because of anything she wanted. We could have gotten along with a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
And during the early years, we did. Yeah, those are difficult questions to answer. You know, it's part of what you and I are going to be talking about, culture. What makes the culture of a given society? What's important?
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that translate from the country to the city. A lot of things that don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But things like that, a man doing what he feels he has to do for the family, is it really for the family? Well, yeah, he puts food on the table.
Right.
That's important.
Right.
In some cases, it's critical. In some cases, he's the only one who can do it. In other cases, not so much. Could I have made a living without traveling all around the world? Without covering 7 wars? Yeah, could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But you were correct. I was a man on the go, on the come, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you look at your career with all the accolades that, like I read at the beginning, what's most meaningful to you today? Because are you 85 now?
Yes.
So you've had a lot of time to evaluate all the stages of life. I mean,
yes.
It's so life is.
You're right.
Life can be confusing because, I mean, I turned 46 yesterday, and the things that I value today are far different than they were 20 years ago, and really even different than they were 10 years ago.
Well, happy birthday anyway.
Thank you. And you know, in every decade that passes, you're able to evaluate and see the fruit of that decade. And at 85, what had value in your life? What's the most meaningful thing? Because our culture does value success. It values money. It values all this stuff. And then people would look at you and go, oh man, this guy's been massively successful. He must be the most happy man in the world. Are you?
I'm very happy. What is the most important thing to me? My wife. My children are all grown. But how old are your kids? I know Bear's
17 to 23.
Bear's 19. He's 19. Yeah.
That's right.
So you're at that stage where they're kind of phasing out, right? They're gonna lead their own lives. But I got news for you. You're gonna be their daddy until they die, or until you die, whichever comes first. Right? It never stops. You don't want it to stop. You want them to be, to a certain degree, not dependent on you, but you want them to turn to you as, if not their best friend, one of their best friends, right? So that stays the case all the way through. That'll never change.
Yeah, that's good advice. I've got Misty, if we need, do you have any specific questions? I've kind of got one more thing, and I could talk to you for another hour, but I want to honor your time. We asked for 45 minutes.
You're going to talk to me for another hour.
Okay. When I see Dustin crawling over here and pulling on my pants, I'm going to whop him in the head, and then we'll talk for another 20 minutes. I learned that from a good newscaster. So I interview a lot of people was never trained in it, was never just started doing it and became a podcaster.
You're a natural. You're very good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. My question to you is, when you interviewed world leaders or anyone that you respected, may not have been a world leader, may have been someone no one knew. How do you not get nervous? I mean, essentially is the question. It's not a very articulate answer, but how do you maintain control? How do you actually get out of someone what you want from them? How do you do that?
I remind myself that he's not really, or she's not really talking to me. I'm the instrument through which that person wants to reach the audience that I have. When I was doing Nightline, and when Nightline was at its peak, we sometimes had audiences up to 9 million people a night. Huge audiences. So when people want access to that audience, they're going to put up with a lot of nonsense from some guy they might not give the time of day to if it were just talking to him. I don't care about you, Clay. Don't you know that? It's your audience I'm after.
Understood.
I want to talk to those beargrease folks, right?
That's right.
No, but I mean that's what we all do.
Yeah.
We're simply instruments of reaching a different audience.
Do you think, is that the way modern journalists think, or like these opinion media people, where, because I would say that's kind of the way I do journalism.
I think it is. It sounds like it.
I mean, I want to, I'm not quite as, I'm just trying to let you funnel through. I mean, I'm kind of trying to, I would have this same conversation if there was no audience. You know, I'm just kind of expressing my interest. But do you think is that still a thing where a journalist is just a glass window that's just reflecting into another audience?
No, journalism has changed tremendously, and it's the technology that has changed. I mean, the fact is, I would bet that, do you have any idea how large your audience is?
I have an idea.
Can you tell me?
After this, I will.
Well, that's no help. Okay. So let's just pick a number. Let's just say 50,000 people. Okay? And they're all over the United States, right? You're not reaching them by radio. You're not reaching them by television. You're reaching them through the internet, right?
That's right.
The internet has done a curious thing, because the internet brings literally, sometimes, millions of people together over an issue without the controlling influence of a journalist. There aren't a whole lot of journalists, the way I would define the term, in my business anymore.
What are they?
For the most part, you know what you're getting. You know what the ideology is.
Right.
They tend to be, and if they are not ideologues themselves, then they're commercial ideologues.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that, for example, a viewer of Fox News and a viewer of MSNBC knows pretty much what he or she is going to get. It's not the same thing.
And they're tuning in because it's telling this person, it's reflecting back to this person kind of what they want to hear.
Exactly.
And you know that. So
there's a sympathy, you know, there are sympathetic vibes going back and forth between the television set and the viewer.
And that never happened before. That wasn't common before the internet, really.
It wasn't common before the internet, if largely because you had ABC, NBC, and CBS. There was no CNN. There was no MSNBC.
There was no YouTube.
There was no YouTube. There was no Fox. And there is a reason why Walter Cronkite was at one point considered the most trustworthy person, the most trusted man in America. Now, was there ever an election that said Walter is the most trusted man in America? No. There was, I think, one magazine article that referred to him as such.
And it stuck.
And it stuck.
Mm.
And it was, there was a certain...
You knew him?
I knew Walter.
Did you ever have to arm wrestle him or fist fight him?
No. I more likely I would have arm wrestled with Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw, both of whom are good friends.
Were they your rivals?
Oh, yes.
Were they really?
Oh, sure.
Was there animosity?
No animosity, but rivalry.
But there was a professionalism, though. I mean, it's kind of like probably more than there would be today.
I think so, probably. But we really, when I say, and I don't know your audience, but I'm just assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Stereotyping us.
Not yet, I'm not, but I'm just about to, if you'll wait for a second. I'm stereotyping in the sense that I believe that many members of your audience would look at a network correspondent, would look at me or look at Dan Rather 20, 30 years ago and Tom Brokaw, the same thing. We're all about the same vintage, right? And say, those guys were all a little bit left of center, right? Maybe not even a little bit left of center. Mm. But back in our day, what else did you have? Right? Where else could you go? There was ABC, there was NBC, and there was CBS.
Oh, so you had no choice but to broadcast left of center, or you wouldn't have got a job? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is you, as an audience member, could have flipped the dial and said, yeah, I'm not crazy about these guys for whatever reason, your personal reason.
Right.
And then you would have said, however, I got no place else to go. There was no CNN. There was no Fox. There was no... But if I tell you now, and I tell you that with great sincerity, we tried very hard to be down the line. Mm. We tried very hard to be honest reporters. We tried very hard to give you a story without ideological twist. Having said that, I will tell you it's been my life experience that the reporter on the ground is always going to have a slightly more liberal outlook than the people back, for example, in Washington. When I was in Vietnam, for example, and would come back for one of these year-end shows, I would always get into fights on the air with our diplomatic correspondent who covered the State Department, with the White House correspondent who covered the White House. Why? Because I was bringing back the point of view of the grunt on the ground in Vietnam. And they didn't much care for the war. They didn't think the war was going all that well. There were even a few of them who thought that we were losing the war. Mm-hmm. You couldn't hear that in Washington back in those days. So was the reporter on the ground more liberal than the reporter who was covering the State Department and the White House? Absolutely. But were we, by definition, left of center? No, we tried very hard to be right down the middle. That's kind of gone these days.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to pick a side.
Well, either that or pick no side. I would argue that the networks these days are less ideological than they were 40, 50 years ago.
I'm pretty confused by that, but
Are you? What do I mean?
I mean, like to say, like, well, I mean, you could pick either side, like a Fox News or a CNN.
No. But those are not. I'm talking about the broadcast networks: ABC, NBC, CBS.
Okay, understood.
Right?
Understood.
You think you know what the ideological slant is of the anchors on ABC, NBC, and CBS? I'm not sure that they have one, and they shouldn't.
Okay.
But I also think that the stories that they do are less tough than the ones we used to do. Point of view.
Yeah.
And it's a point of view that comes from an 85-year-old geezer who's been out to pasture for quite a while.
So what's your prediction of how things are going to go? Because the internet truly is a technology that changed planet Earth. Humans have never done this before. What we're doing, and like media was so impacting to society for so long, and now it's people are getting their news from everywhere. They're getting their news from where they want. There's news coming to your phone, like, what's the projection of what media is going to do to this country in 20 years?
I'm not optimistic. I don't think it's leading us in a good direction. Let me put it this way. 30, 40 years ago, a couple of guys sitting at a bar having an argument happened all the time. Now that argument ends up on the internet, and before you know it, you've got 500,000 people engaged. And where they're getting their information may not be the best place. Part of the problem is people's information frequently has an ideological bias on the left and on the right. And the end result is you've got people in our country today who are at odds with one another only because of what they're hearing or reading or seeing on their carefully selected medium, which reflects their point of view to begin with. That's why they picked it. And it's driving us as a people further and further apart.
I agree.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. I think it's tearing us apart at the seams. I mean, and I don't know that there's a better solution, but yeah, it's interesting.
It's not whether there's a worse or a better solution. The problem, the technology is,
and it's not going away.
Picked us up in its teeth and is running down the road with us.
Yeah. Yep.
We have no say in it anymore. I mean, well, I'll ask you later, how do you feel about influencers? What is an influencer? Do you know?
I do.
Are you an influencer?
I don't want to be.
Are you?
I mean, I think some people would consider me that. I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm not, it's not a flattering term to me. Neither is being a podcaster. Being a podcaster is like being a used car salesman.
Really?
I don't want to be a podcaster. No.
Well, that's easy. Stop it.
Well, but I am very interested in people and their stories and interpreting their stories to the world.
You are a very good communicator.
Thank you.
And so you should do it. You have to do it on the medium that's available to you.
Right.
And, so far you haven't received an invitation from the network. But maybe you will.
Maybe. You think you could get me a job at CBS?
Would you take it?
Well, you know what talks, in the poorest state in the country.
I'll tell you what. You know what they don't give away these days? in the richest city in the country.
What's that?
A whole lot of money.
A whole lot of money. Same here, man. Same problem here. Yep. I don't know. Are we good, Dustin? Okay. I saw you inching up. I thought you were going to crawl over here and pull on my pant legs.
Yeah. I think Mike is almost done with his setup. So, yeah.
Okay.
Misty, is there anything else I need to ask?
How old were your daughters when you stayed home? The year you stayed home?
It would have been.
Misty asked how old his daughters were when he stayed home.
Well, the oldest daughter would have been 13 or 14. And then the next one would have been 11 or 12. And the youngest would have been about 6. And I had a son at that point, and he would have been about 8.
About 8.
Right.
Okay, so 6 to 14.
7 or 8, yeah.
Who cooked better?
What do you mean?
Who cooked better between you and your wife?
During the period that you cooked? Or the period
Misty, do I look suicidal to you?
Who did they say cooked better?
All I keep thinking about is I heard an interview with Jimmy Carter on the radio, and it had something to do with pork chops and peanut butter.
Mm.
And I cooked it that evening, and they were awful. I mean, it must have been me, because I'm sure, if Jimmy had cooked them, they would have been just fine. But I was lousy on the pork chops and peanut butter.
Have you ever had wild game?
I'll tell you when I would have had wild game. When I was in boarding school. I was in boarding school in like 1951, 52, 53.
In England?
In England. And that was shortly after the war. The war ended in 1945, Second World War. I know we had a lot of rabbit.
Really?
Yeah.
But it would have been farm-raised rabbit.
No. It would have been,
Like wild hunter-killed rabbits.
Yeah.
In the boarding school in England.
Well, that was the only meat they could get. Yeah.
Oh, after the war.
After the war.
It was distressing times.
They were distressing times.
Okay.
So I ate rabbit with gusto.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Could have helped you in your quickness and agility over the years. Never know.
Either that or my stupidity. You can't tell. It's. I'm trying to think. I have never. There is no question about it. I've never tasted bear. How does bear taste?
Bear is in the words of one of the early explorers of America, it tastes betwixt pork and beef.
Betwixt pork and beef.
Yeah.
Well, I like pork, and I like beef.
I'm being quite serious, and
Yes.
I would say this believe it with all my heart.
Is it gamey?
No, you would eat bear meat that I cooked for you, and you would think it was beef.
Really?
100%.
I will tell you a quick World War II story. Meat was rare. My mother came home one day bearing a steak. I had never seen a steak. My father had many times, right, but not during the war. And she cooked that steak, and my father ate it, and I ate it, and she touched nary a bite of that steak. Now you're thinking, I know what you're thinking, horse. No. What else could it have been?
A steak. If it was
Steak.
red marbled meat.
Not marbled, but red meat.
Red meat.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I would have thought sheep or beef, but was it a mule?
No. It was a whale.
Whale.
Whale meat.
Whale meat.
Tasted a little bit fishy.
Naturally.
But red meat. Right?
Have you ever had, what's the name? It's right on I should have just gone for it. Uktuk.
Uktuk?
It's
Never.
it's the outer layer of skin of a whale with a big chunk of fat. The Inuits, the Arctic people in the Arctic
Right,
eat it. I
right.
believe it's muktuk.
Muktuk.
Oh my gosh, they eat it. They put
How's it-
seal oil on it.
How's
And
his
it tastes like
pronunciation,
the
Misty?
ocean.
Let the record show that Misty is sort of moving her hands in a flat facing the floor, back and forth, indicating
I stand by my second swing at bat, muktuk.
muktuk.
And it's the fat and outer layer. It's
Right.
it's beautiful. It's black. It has a little square and it's white. And they eat it. And it
All right.
tastes like the ocean. It tastes like you're in the Atlantic, with
Got
swimming
it.
with the fish.
It's
bad.
Can't wait.
It is not good.
Can't wait. All
Whale
right.
steak.
Well, you have achieved your primary goal here,
Yes.
which is to so exhaust me that I can't really interview you. But I'll do the best I can.
Well, Mr. Koppel,
Ted,
Ted,
Right.
truly a pleasure.
thank you.
This will be talking with you today on Bear Grease will definitely be in the top
23.
10 to 20 interviews I've ever done in my
Whoa,
life.
top 10 or 20.
No. Much higher than that. Much higher. I set you up for that. For those not watching, I lifted up my hand and was counting on the 5 digits. He thought I was going in for top 5. No, truly an honor. Truly an honor. Thank you so much for coming to Arkansas
My pleasure.
and taking the time. I wasn't when I asked your producer if you would sit down with me for Bear Grease. I honestly thought there's no way he would do it. So your kindness and generosity is noted.
Well, together with kindness and generosity, please include stupidity. No, it was a pleasure. It really was.
Thank you.
You were very nice. Thank you.